I still haven't made a little music intro. I need to do that.
We need to find somebody that's musically talented.
That would be nice.
Hum your way into it.
Like I said, I can make something in GarageBand.
Get Casey O'Connor to.
Does he
record
still
something.
make music though?
Yeah. He's coming here in a couple months to record with his band.
That's a good idea. Okay, so we are live. I'm just seeing a commercial because I'm logging into Twitch from my other account. Welcome. What was that?
I forgot to turn the sound down.
I thought it was intro music.
I did too.
Yeah, I was feeling all special for a second. Well, welcome to Making the Podcast. We've got a special guest, Rich Van Meter, here tonight, along with Mikey D and me, Joey. Yep, that's me. You might as well say something now, Mike, in case you don't get too much in here in a bit.
Listen, I know everybody's used to me doing a good amount of talking on these things, but I have a feeling tonight this is not going to be that episode that I am going to be the primary speaker in these things. This is not a topic I'm as familiar about. In fact, not skilled in on
boss.
any level. This is not my forte. I appreciate the work that we're about ready to discuss. Not my skill set by any stretch of the imagination. Yeah, there's Renee. Hello, boss.
Hey, Bull in the house. I didn't think you were going to make it, Bull. Welcome. You know what? I did not. Do you know how? Are you watching? Are you able to see the chat, Rich?
I'm not.
So if you open Twitch on your phone or a device, you'll be able to see chat that way.
Let me do it.
That way I don't have to read, or Mike doesn't have to interrupt us to read something. But Magic's Terrence.
Oh, you know Magic. Terrence Murray.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he said Van Meter in the house.
Yeah.
Renee said hello, boss. And a good friend of the podcast, Bull Rider, says howdy. Just like that.
Everybody.
But maybe a little more grumpy old man like when he says it.
We've all become grumpy old man after a fashion.
Oh, we've got nothing on Bull Rider.
Listen, I think that's probably a fair statement. We were talking about this last week with Isaac about you're Gen X, right, Rich?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. You're in the same age bracket as us.
Yeah, I think I'm only a year or two younger than you are.
Well, the good news is last week I was the young guy on the show. This week you get to take that place, but Joey still gets to remain as the old guy on the show.
Thanks.
I think when I met you two, I think I was like 31 or something like that. So it's been a minute, but I'm not 31 anymore. That's for sure.
Well, yeah, look, funny story. We don't talk specifically about the place we work, but we do have that in common, that we all work in the same place. And I was actually having a conversation where you kind of popped up in the conversation the other day. And I've been at the company that we work at for 15 years. And we were talking about kind of that when somebody walks in and they kind of intro you to their company and they're like, hey, welcome to the company. And, they do their introduction speech. And we were talking about somebody and we're like, listen, man, you got to have a little bit of life and a little bit of hype about you when you do that. And so in this conversation with us, I was like, you know who was my hype man? My GoDaddy. Oh, there I go again. I did it again. My hype man to the company we all work for. Listen, GoDaddy's in it now, so GoDaddy's in it now. My GoDaddy hype man was absolutely Rich Van Meter. Like he was that senior level director, came in and was like, welcome GoDaddy in here. And I was telling somebody the other day, I was like, man, when he left that room that day, I was like, yep, I'm excited about being here. And we were talking about maybe making you that person to be that hype man. We should make hype man videos with Rich Van Meter.
Hey, we just got 2 subscriptions from Bull Rider. So thank you, Bull.
He's consistent.
No,
nice.
he gifted them one to me and one to Hansy. So thank you.
Nice.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's not hard to be a hype man for something that you love doing. So and that was a fun time too. Those were some Wild West days.
You know what? You had some eye-opening moments for me as well. They might have been more disciplinary for you and I, but they really normally if somebody's, I mean, I was a good employee even if I had disciplinary something or other. I don't even remember what. I think it was my supervisor at the time. We didn't get along, and yeah, but nonetheless, even though it was
before
disciplinary.
We get too far into the show,
you interrupt me. What? Right when I'm? Oh,
I had to.
Oh, my.
I had to.
Bull's gonna get mad at you. So, even though it was disciplinary, you set me on the course in a positive way, and that was my early memory of Rich at work.
Well, good. I got it right once. There you go.
Well, at least once.
At least one time. No, it's been fun. Somebody did it for me before then too. And that was the thing is it's no matter what you're doing, you should pay it forward. If somebody does good to you, you should pay it forward. Whether it's in line at Starbucks or whether it's at work or whatever. I think.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't disagree with that. I think, especially for some of us cats have been doing, pick a job, any job. I mean, if you invest over a decade into anything, seriously, right? Like, there's got to be a love for that. Otherwise, you're just a glutton for punishment. You're going to something if you don't love what you do and you're spending all that time doing it, then you're making bad choices. Like, if you're going to spend that much time doing something, you might as well love what you're doing. Or at least love who you're working for. And so I think, I talk about my social circle all the time, and my social circle is filled with coworkers. That's what my social circle has become over the years. But we all have a commonality. We love doing what we do. So
it's funny you mentioned talk about doing stuff for 10 years or more, and in your new hire training, put those two together. And when I was in training, my first day, you go around the room, who are you? What did you do before this? And I said, hey, I'm Rich Van Meter. I was a guide in Southeast Alaska for 10 years. And I remember there was like this collective look like, what in the hell are you doing here?
Oh, yeah.
And, that was, I was like, I don't know. I needed a job and I hated the rain. So I came to the desert and we'll figure it out. And,
yeah, but in fairness, that was part of my draw to you initially. Like you telling that story about how you were on fishing boats and you did all these tours, and I was just like,
wait a second,
that's pretty legit. Yeah. Oh yeah, you two have this in common as well.
You worked on boats?
Oh yeah,
I worked
took
on
my
boats.
first 2 steps on boats.
I worked on boats for years.
What kind?
Sport boats out of San Diego going down Baja.
Oh wow! See, I was in Sitka, so I was in Sitka, Alaska, which is southeast, but every summer.
Yeah, amazing.
And then cruise, small cruise boats, inter-island, talking 23, 24 passenger and 11 crew type.
Similar to what I did, except you didn't have to be pretty for anything. I was a cook mostly, deckhand cook. And in most rights, the cook's kind of the boss on the boat anyway, so
a lot of the time
you get to tell people what to do except the captain and maybe the second, but yeah.
Yeah, even the skipper has to listen because
for sure.
The cook's the one that's cooking the food. So if the cook needs the boat to not be moving to make something, that boat's not moving.
Well, but even if he's mad at you, he's still got to come at you nice.
Yeah, for sure.
That is a life not cut out for me. I get seasickness when I'm snorkeling. So
see, that's the thing about Southeast Alaska is it's all inside passage. So like once you I've done the inside passage from Seattle up to Sitka or Juneau and back like 15 times. And once you get inside passage, it's dead calm unless you've got one hell of a storm. And otherwise it's just flat.
Why is that?
It's because there's no
outside. So when you're inside passage, he's talking about there's land on both sides of them.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a harbor.
Yeah.
Once you're in a harbor, there's no
Yeah,
No
between
waves.
Seattle and Sitka, for example, there's only 2 crossings that have open exposure to the ocean, and it's Queen Charlotte Sound at the north end of Vancouver Island, and then Dixon Entrance, which is right as you transition from Canada into Alaskan waters.
And
The
that
rest of
water
it's
can
all
get
shielded.
pretty rough.
How long of a boat trip is that from Seattle to Sitka?
It's about 820 miles, something like
Oh my
that.
gosh, that's long. Wow.
So that could be a pretty long trip.
Yeah, depending, the cruise ships will do it in like 3 days because they run 24 hours a day. We would normally do it in 5 to 7, and there's only one spot at the right. There's Georgia Strait, which is kind of as you leave Washington on the east side of Vancouver Island and head north. There's a town called Nanaimo, British Columbia, and just barely north of Nanaimo is, I want to say it's Seymour Narrows, and that narrows, the water comes through so hard that even the cruise ships will wait until slack tide or a near slack to go through it, because it'll come through at 20 knots.
Wow.
Yeah,
and then
that
you
sounds
come out into
miserable to me.
Johnstone Strait.
So, and at 20 knots, if you were to compare it to like miles per hour, it's usually about like 3 times. So
it's 1.15 nautical miles to a statute mile.
It's
so that's about 25 miles.
Oh, it is? Oh, I thought it
Yep.
was faster than that.
Yeah.
Kit in the house, what's up? On mobile right now. So Kit's parents are here from Australia. So thanks for showing up even while you've got family in town. I sure do appreciate that.
Nice.
Yeah, I always thought it was 3 times, but no, it didn't matter for me.
So we'll kind of jump into part of the reason that we asked Rich on here, and it wasn't to talk about his inspiring leadership for us and what he's brought to the table. That wasn't, but just that's where we land. Like, listen, that tends to be where we land in a lot of these cases. But here, let me kick it off. I want to show. So here's how I don't know. Rich, was I the first one that was gifted anything in this? Okay, cool. Then I feel really cool about this. So, listen, anybody that's watched this show for more than 30 minutes understands I'm a Star Wars fan. Like, that's at this point, that's not even kind of a hidden fact. But so one day, I forget how it was, but I don't know if I would post it. Rich had posted, somebody posted something on Facebook, like one of these cutting boards that was kind of a Star Wars theme. And over the course of the next, I would say probably week, Rich was starting to give away like little hints on Facebook of a project that he was working on. And the first thing he did was post a side of what I knew right away was a TIE fighter wing. He was like, "What do you think this is?" And he just kind of put, I was like, "Yes, that's a TIE fighter wing. Like that's a TIE fighter wing. I know exactly what that is." So I had no idea. So one day he shows up while I was in the middle of something at work, but he showed up to the house and he brought this bad boy over. So let me get it in front of.
Jeez Louise.
There you go.
How's that look? So to give you some of the detail.
A little epoxy resin, huh?
Some of the detail.
The camera makes it look like he's got bubbles in there. There's no bubbles in that. I just got
no. Yeah, there's no bubbles in here.
You know why that's important, Mike?
No.
Okay. Just curious.
I mean, from an aesthetics point, I can see
No, I get why he's like immediately like defending his work here.
Well, no, here's what makes it look cool is because on the red, what you can't see it in the red, it's got this cool kind of swirly, almost like Mustafar vibe in the red. And then it's got this cool kind of sky vibing blue over here. That I don't know that on camera. I don't know if it does it justice on camera. Here. In case you haven't noticed, I'm obviously pretty excited about this. This is gorgeous. Technically a cutting board that will never.
It's a charcuterie board. It's just for cheese.
Yeah, you're not supposed to cut on it. You're supposed to put stuff on it.
That won't happen. This is a piece of artwork in my mind.
What kind of wood is that?
I'll get it closer here.
I don't know. It's funny. I asked Mike. I said, "What?" Yeah, now you can see the bottom there, and I asked Mike, what should I do? And he says, I don't know, one of those live edge things or something, I think is how the conversation came up. And my brother-in-law and I took down a tree on my in-laws house, and I kept some of the segments, and then I cut that wood on a bandsaw and milled it, and it had been sitting in the garage for like 2 years. And so I grabbed it and I thought, okay, well, let's see what I can make. And so I put it through the planer and flattened it, and then watched a couple videos, and it was kind of a cool idea. There's a great outfit on Instagram called Backyard Resin, and this guy does tables and all sorts of stuff, but super wicked stuff. And that's kind of what got me into like, hey, I bet you I could do that. And cool guy, check it out. And then Mike's wife said, because I had a mutual friend of ours say, hey, will you make one of these for my wife for her birthday? And I said, sure. What do you want? And he says, Little Mermaid. I'm like, oh God, I don't know how to make a Little Mermaid, but I'll figure it out. So I made a Little Mermaid cutting board and gave it to him. And he says, okay, I'm going to give it to her on her birthday. And I think that lasted about 35 minutes before she got home, and he had to give it to her early anyway.
Oh,
is that true?
Yeah. And
that doesn't surprise me.
Gave him the Little Mermaid cutting board. It turned out pretty awesome. And then I think Renee, your wife, said in Facebook, hey, we should do a party with everybody that's got these cutting boards. And I said, everybody, 2 of you? I said, I think more people need cutting boards. So I've since did a third one there was a Lord of the Rings kind of design, and that was super fun.
That one, listen, it's interesting to watch how just in a short time that work has progressed. Like some of the additional detail you put in. I don't care what anybody says. We can all get together and have a charcuterie board party. You're not putting anything on my board. That is not happening. I'm going on record and saying you're not putting anything on this board. This is you call it whatever you want. This is a piece of art that we will not blemish.
Cool.
Yeah. And they're fun to make.
That's what a woodworker likes to hear, though. So, was that one of your first boards then, or
the
first boards?
One that Mike has is the first attempt I did at a board.
Wow.
First time I'd used resin with wood, other than like filling stabilizing knot holes and stuff.
Yeah.
First time I'd ever used it for like an artistic application with wood, and just kind of went from there.
So
yeah, some quick comments from Renee a little while ago said #no bubbles.
Yeah.
Hi, Aunt Carrie. That's my Aunt Carrie.
Hi, Aunt Carrie.
Rich.
Hi, Aunt Carrie.
Yeah, that Lord of the Rings board was super dope as well. And then last week, for anybody that wasn't tuned in last week, we had Isaac and 80s Craig on from Big Bike BMX, and Rich just kind of see, this is why we shouldn't talk about stuff pre-show. Tell a story about last week's board.
So I listened to, it wasn't even really, so there were 2 things I took to Isaac, and I've known him for a long, long time, but he was on the podcast, and I listened. That was the first podcast I'd listened to in quite a while. And it was great. I loved it. And as I was listening to it, I sat down and thought, well, Isaac's been doing this for a while. So I asked him, just reached out and I said, hey, do you have a logo? Do you have a vector file or anything like that for your logo? And he said, yeah. So he sent it to me, and I said, okay, cool. Thanks. And then I didn't say anything to him. And about 2 hours later, I started sending him pictures from my garage of, the machine going around and cutting out his logo. And he had no idea what was going on. So that was Friday. Sunday, I took it over to him, and it was his logo with Big Bike BMX on it, and on a piece of walnut. So it just kind of stood out as 3-dimensional. And, he was like, dude, I had no idea. You know how Isaac is, bro. I had no idea. And then I had made a test board that looks like a Wii or a Switch, Nintendo Switch, that I made, that's got, the red controller on one side and the teal controller on the other, and then a black screen. I made that, and that was directly inspired from a table that Backyard Designs had done. And then I took that and gave that to him and his wife. And first thing he said is, honey, check out this cutting board Rich gave us. And I said, don't you use knives on that thing. You'll ruin it. But it's fun. That's part of it is, you know, making gifts for folks. And sometimes you do it to pay for it. And sometimes you do it because it's just something that kind of inspires you.
Yeah, but you're doing more than boards. Like, if I remember correctly, you've been doing like you did like a whole gamer table at some point, didn't you?
That's what got me started. So, I mean, I've been watching woodworking since I was a little kid. I was always fascinated with it. But years ago, I've been a big board gamer for a long, long time. And, you know, for all sorts of reasons. And I, at one point, wanted a table, like a gaming table that I could use. And when we weren't playing, I could put a top on it and it just looked like a dining table. So I guess in 2019 or so, I went to the wood store and found a whole pile of walnut and found a set of plans online. And it was really interesting. It was the community that I found online on Facebook. It is super supportive of each other. And that was one of the things that was cool was on a lot of the videos and the how-tos, these folks have tools, you know, $100,000 shop with every woodworking tool you can imagine. And they make it look like it's, you know, it's all cut into a perfect video and everything. And it's like the magic of television.
Right.
There's no magic to doing it. You've got to get in and chisel it out and cut it out. But it was, hey, don't let the tool limit you. There's always another way to figure it out. And as soon as that kind of clicked in my head, that's what we do all day long at work is figure out how to do it with, you know, as we can. And that's what I did was built this table, and it sits in my dining room and in my kitchen dining area. And my kid plays Legos in it. It's full of Legos right now.
Oh boy.
It's a gaming table.
I mean, it's cool still.
You didn't say what game,
but and then when the grown-ups come over to play, it gets cleared off and we play games on it and have fun. And then a few years ago, a good friend of mine, one of the ones that actually got me back into playing board games, he and his wife had stayed in his mom's house for like 11 years upstairs in their loft with their two daughters. And so they hadn't had a house of their own for a long time. And a couple of years ago, they finally bought a house. So a couple of us all pitched in. I said, I'll build it. Somebody else can sand it and finish it, and then we'll deliver it to them. And so we did that. And I built him another table and delivered it to his house. So I built two of them. I love building them because it's kind of fun to see something go from a pile of sticks to something that a family will be able to keep for a long time. But there's a lot to it. And but then I built some accessories, you know, card holders and stuff like that, magnetized card holders. And then my wife, that's where this all started, was my wife said, hey, I want those crossword puzzle tiles, but I want our family names on that. And so, that was one of the first things that I had to try and figure out how to make was the crossword tiles. And that was a fun project to do.
So what's your favorite thing to do though? Like now that you've got some time in it, you've got a CNC, you've got milling equipment, you've got a lot to do, a lot of things. What is your favorite?
I think my favorite is probably still the furniture stuff. Like I've got a couple sets of plans for different chairs, which chairs are extremely hard to figure out and design if you're not good at them because of all the angles. They're not just square.
No joke.
They're not 90-degree things. When was the last time you sat in a 90-degree, something that looked like the number 4 upside down? It's uncomfortable.
If it is, it's uncomfortable.
Yeah. So I've got a couple designs for that I'd like to do this winter. Honestly, I'd love to make another gaming table because they're just fun. I don't have room for it in my house, but they're just fun to do. And you always change something up a little bit different in each one and update the design. But I really dig it because it's something, any of it really, because everything that I've done, for the last 18 years has been virtual. It's been online. It's been there. And you've seen this kind of, I think, influx of makers online, whether it's people with laser cutters or people trying to figure out new things or people with a lathe. but it's people making tangible things. And there's I think it's an art that's being lost is how to do some of these things and how to make them. And none of it is tremendously hard. A lot of it's a lot of basic geometry. You just have to apply it, but it's beautiful. And that's why like furniture, tables and stuff like that, I could do all day.
We've got a guy out here that does chairs on a lathe. And after he's done with the spindle work on the lathe, he takes and bends them, the rods, for the, the backs of the chair. So the outside spindles or rods bend out like this. The center ones have a slight bend going like this, or coming in and then up. It's crazy, and it's just like a heat thing, water and heat that he bends them with. He also does like cowboy hats on the lathe. So he does them flat.
I have a question. Explain to me what a lathe is.
So a lathe is a machine. So imagine a pool cue.
Okay.
So let's say you put a square piece of wood on a machine that spins in circles really, really fast. Some up to, I'd say, let's just say 4,000 RPM down to 180 RPM. So rotations per minute. So 180 is actually pretty slow. 4,000, you can just imagine the difference. Yeah. So they'll put it, so everything that you're doing on a lathe is going to be perfectly straight and round. But you can use chisels, a lathe tool, a gouge, a scraper, a cutter.
It's what people use to do their bowls and stuff. Like they watch it spin, and they don't do it. They don't use it just with wood either. I've seen it with different things, right?
Resin.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Metal.
I'm tracking.
Okay.
So here's side topic to this. One more thing, Rich. Like using that big BMX. What is the tool that carves out like these intricate designs? Like you carving out the big bike BMX logo.
That's a CNC. So that's I can't remember what computer. Or
it's the one. So do you see where it says Rich Van Meter on the overlay?
Oh yeah, I got you.
That's a CNC.
So you can basically program it in. That's what you need the vector files for.
Yep. So like the logo, Star Wars logo there, that was all cut out. Where the resin is, that was all cut out with the CNC machine. And same thing with the holes for that. The cribbage holes are on that cribbage board. Cool thing about that cribbage board is underneath that emblem, that's magnetized. You can take that off and the cards and pins sit underneath it.
Oh, cool.
Joey, do you have a CNC yet?
No.
Is that next for you?
No.
No?
I mean, I would love one, but I don't have. If I had a money stream coming in already, and I could start adding, let's say, branding or images to some of the things I'm doing, then yes, I would love to have a CNC. But until then, it's too much money for me to spend on what I do. And out of all the woodworking I've ever done, and I've tried a bunch of things, rings are my favorite thing. Laminating different woods together and getting different looks, and you don't need I could use maybe a laser for etching, but outside of that, a CNC is not really in the forecast for me at this time. It's an expensive tool if you're going to do it right.
And it takes a lot. Like I don't know how many hundreds of hours of how-tos I've watched and everything else, and it's just there's a lot of depths and speeds and angles and everything else that I had no idea that was in there, but it's interesting to learn how to set it up.
I mean, I'm good at the artwork side, like the vector files. I could create those for you all day long, easy. That's easy for me.
How long does it take you to make like one of your gaming tables?
The first time I made the gaming table I made for myself, And that was one of those, there's no way I'm going to spend $5,000 on a damn table. That's too much. I know I can make it for less type thing.
Yeah.
When is everybody that's ever worked with wood knows that as soon as you say I can make it for less, you're wrong. So my first one I made,
especially if he made it out of walnut. Just saying.
Yeah, and walnut's way more expensive now than it was then. But that one took me about probably between 80 and 100 hours, because it was, other than like a table saw and a router, handheld router, everything else was done, and a joiner. I didn't have a planer, but I had a joiner, which puts a flat edge. So if you've got a piece of wood that's got a twist or anything in it, you run it through a joiner to put a flat edge on two sides. And then typically what you would do is run that through a planer, which would create two parallel sides for you. But
wait, you started with a joiner and then got a planer?
After I was done with I used the joiner to actually plane both sides of everything, which is way hard.
Yeah.
And then there's a joint called a bridle joint. That's essentially, a piece of wood, you cut a notch out of one side. So if it's, in this case, they were 1.5 inches thick, and I cut a 1/2 inch notch in the middle. And then you cut a male end on the other side of the wood, and they sit in like this. I didn't have any tool because they were so long. I couldn't use a table saw or anything like that. And I didn't have a bandsaw or anything that would handle that. So I used a handheld Japanese pull saw to do all 4 corners. Each of those corners took me like probably 3 hours between cutting and chiseling and getting them to do them right. And then, fast forward 1.5 years, I found a bandsaw on Craigslist that I went and picked up. And when I made the second table, it took me about 10 minutes to do all 4 corners.
But I bet you were inexperienced with the pull saw as well, correct?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So you go
those have a learning curve too. But once
Yeah.
you're good with them, they're super fast. What?
A buddy of mine that had gotten me back into board games years ago, and we got it as a gift for a housewarming present for them to moving into their first house.
Well, that's a pretty significant rad gift.
What did you make his out of?
I made his out of ash, and I learned something out of that one. I have a hard time making stuff for other people. That's why it's hard for me to think about, like, do I throw my shingle out as like a side hustle or not? Because I was totally in it. I'd gone and picked all this super straight grain ash. It was super pretty. There were some cathedral, quarter sawn stuff on it and some riff sawn stuff. So there's, cool figure on it, and had it all ready to go. I was getting ready to assemble it. And I said, "Hey, are you sure this is the right size? Cause it's big." It's my table's 66 by 44 on the top.
What?
His was 79 by 40, 79 by 51. So you can literally take my table turned upside down and sit it in the player vault on his. So it was a big table. So I kept having him check with his wife to make sure it was not too big for his house. And he said, "Nope, it's the right size. And we'd really like it like a burgundy color."
Oh, geez. I hate finishing.
So I had to stain it. And that took all of the interest. And like at that point, it was just get it out of my garage. I just wanted it assembled and out. It was two coats of stain and then 4 coats of finish on top of that. And then a week to just sit in the garage and let it harden, sand in between.
Oil or water-based finish though?
I use water-based because ash will turn yellow with oil-based. Yeah. Okay. So with water-based, it'll stay nice and bright and white. So what they did is all of the legs and the surround kind of apron is all that kind of a burgundy red wine color. And then the top inserts, because that's the way the table's a big rectangle. And then there's 3 inserts that go into it to create the top surface that you would eat off of or whatever.
Gotcha.
And those are all straight ash white.
Do they use the table to eat off of, as a dinner table, and then break it out as a gaming table when?
Yeah.
So another thing about like the finish though, Mike. So, and I always use water too, but not for that reason. I use water because it usually is clear, but it also dries much faster. So you
Way
can get
faster.
your work done quicker. That's the lazy.
Jody, didn't you make a table at one point? I could have sworn you made a table.
Yeah, one coffee table, yeah.
Oh, is that what it was?
And
Just
I
a
made
coffee
it
table?
out of 100% pallet wood. But it was, I mean, it was very solid though.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing. People look at like, oh well, it's not some exotic hardwood. You know what? Building is still building, and it takes a skill set to make that stuff out of. There's a guy, Michael Alm. He's got a YouTube channel that he's become gaining fame. He's got like 500,000 followers because he makes what's called patterned plywood. He takes birch veneer plywood, which has like 9 layers on a 3/4 inch piece, and he cuts them into strips at different angles, and he puts them all together. And the cross section that you would see with the stripes, he's got a dozen different designs, and then he'll cut that and make tambour sliders for cabinets. Wormwood Gaming has a Kickstarter right now for a Dungeon Master screen for D&D, and they've got Michael Alm pattern plywood veneers on their high-end ones. And on their high-end ones, these are like $900 custom DM screens with plywood on the front, and they're gorgeous.
That's crazy. Yeah, this is me. I've always used construction grade for making stuff. And honestly, this round of rings is the first time I've gotten into exotics or hardwoods.
What are you making the rings out of?
Exotics and hardwoods: walnut, cherry, maple, Purple Heart. I haven't made any Purple Heart yet. But that's one that I'll be using. Ebony. So really hard, dense woods. So that they last.
Watch out for Wenge is a really pretty wood from Africa.
But very poisonous.
Yeah, the splinters, it splinters real bad. And man, you can get, some people react really, really bad to the splinters.
Really?
Yeah, you got to wear gloves and a full face ventilator. But it's beautiful.
Same thing with our local ironwood. There's a lot of mills in the Phoenix area.
Ironwood like that? I didn't know that.
It's super hard, and anything in Arizona is either dead or trying to kill you. And that's the same thing to do. Same thing with ironwood. The dust. I've used it a couple times for little projects like knife scales, and the dust, you breathe in a little bit of it and your lungs are burning. So a lot of mills won't process old, found timber or anything like that that's ironwood around here because they've got to wear respirators and deal with it like it's hazmat.
Yeah, it's funny in the chat. Hansy just said we need a carpentry sim, and it's funny as you guys were talking, I'm like, you know what? I need to get a carpentry sim. Like I was thinking about that, and I look in the comments, and he's actually posting that.
Yeah, Arizona's the new Australia for sure.
Yeah. Arizona, the new Australia, everything tries to kill you, even the dirt. That's actually a true statement. Even the dirt here tries to kill you.
It does. So outside of the current Padres situation of today, I'd say woodworking is personally my favorite topic. I can go for hours, and I enjoy making anything that I can and figuring it out on my own. Like, I get so many people in emails and like these clickbait things for buying plans, and that drives me nuts. I don't want a plan. I want to figure it out. But yeah, it's by far. Go ahead.
Well, same question to both of you. Like, have you either of you thought about like making this your business, not just your side hustle, but your hustle?
Our current company is way too good of a company for me to even think about that.
Okay, that's fair. Have you thought about side hustling till it's profitable enough to pass what you're doing as your main hustle?
Rich?
We'll change the context.
I would side hustle it until I decided to retire and then just do that as a side hustle. But I would never, I don't think I'd ever try and turn it into a full-time deal. And that's just because of things like IKEA, people will never value, wood and that kind of stuff the way that it should be, because you can get it for 10 times cheaper somewhere else.
Well, I mean, that's fair, but let me pose the counter question: that do you sell any of the work you do? I feel like everything you've done hasn't been, you're not getting necessarily commission for it.
I sold
Or are you?
I sold the Little Mermaid board and
Okay.
the Lord of the Rings board. Lord of the Rings board was that's one of the things that I love about woodworking, is that you can't go fast.
Yeah.
Because if you do, you're going to make a mistake or you're going to hurt yourself, or both. And I had done that with these boards. You start off with milling the wood, and that only takes you like a half an hour. So you think that you're going to be in this thing fast. Then you put a mold together, and you put the wood in the mold, and then you start pouring epoxy. And you got bubbles that you got to make sure you get rid of. So you torch that, and then pour another layer, and torch it, and pour another layer. And then you got to wait.
Well, you got to wait. Wait.
The kind that I use is a food grade. Technically all epoxy is food safe after it's cured, but the stuff that I use is like FDA approved food grade stuff for boards. And that stuff takes 72 hours to cure before you can take it out of the mold. So then it's just hurry up and wait. And now you've got like 4 days invested in it before you do anything else. And then that board, I wish I had pictures I could show, but that board actually has the script from the One Ring around around the perimeter of the board that was cut in on the CNC, and I put gold epoxy in that. So that took another 3 days. So now we're 6 days into it. And then I ran it. It was too big. It was 15 inches in diameter. So it was too big to go through my planer. So I thought, I'll put it in my drum sander, and had too deep of a cut in it. So at that point, I had to sand all the way down and sand away all of the script to get it back to flat. And I had just barely, there was a ring that was the one ring that was in there over the Shire at about 45 degrees that I had just barely nipped the ring. Like I was through the epoxy, and I had to go back and fix it. And you can barely tell if you look at it, but it wasn't perfect. So I said, hey, you know what, if you still want to go forward with it, we'll essentially call it square on cost. Just let me pay for my materials, and we're good. And they did, and it was still fun. It still turned out great.
Renee asks, what happens if you get a bubble? Can you go back with resin once it dries?
It's on the top.
Yeah.
If it's inside, there's nothing you can do.
Remake it or leave it.
And that's one of that backyard designs. I actually sent a note to him once, because one of the famous ones, he's got a big coffee table that he's got the TIE Fighter and stuff in. And I think his are the TIE Fighters and the Millennium Falcon. And he poured a layer of like black resin, and then another layer of like clear. But when you look at the pictures, he left bubbles in the clear underneath. And I asked him if that was intentionally. He said, oh yeah, just added texture. And I said, yeah. I don't know if it added texture or if you just left them in there on accident.
I mean, was it meant to mimic stars?
Maybe, I guess. I'm not criticizing the guy, because the dude is great. Like, but it when I saw that, I was like, those are bubbles. Why would he put bubbles in there? But they do, at a distance. I guess it's different. If you're looking at something like this versus looking at something in your living room, they probably look like stars and like star clusters.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's something I could do, because I have a 3D printer. You probably do too. Is that how did you get were they toys?
Board game toys. Those are X-Wing. There's a game called X-Wing that's a tabletop board game where you actually fly all the different ships from Star Wars around and do battles. So I grabbed two TIE Fighters and one X-Wing and threw them in there.
I would imagine if you're going to keep doing that in any way, that you'll be getting a 3D printer.
Probably. I've got tons of friends that have them.
There you go.
Yeah, I think my next big purchase, if I purchase anything else that's of size, it'll be a laser.
Yep.
Because there's a ton of stuff that you can do with a laser that you can't do with the CNC.
just make sure you have a good exhaust system, because that
Yeah.
stuff
Why?
because it's very toxic.
Lasers are?
Yes.
Yeah. Especially if you're using plastics or anything like that. You're just melting it, and you've got the fumes in your
That
house.
makes sense.
Same thing with the 3D printer. I've got a friend of ours, coworker of all of ours, that he's got an 8K printer, and he accidentally knocked a tub of resin off onto his floor, into his carpet.
Oh, bummer.
My
The smell.
my Swaggernaut, the guy in the back, I bet that's by our mutual friend.
It's from Frank.
Oh no.
Yeah.
I thought you were saying Victor.
No. And Frank texted me. He's like, "So, dude, I got to redo my office." And I said, "What do you mean redo your office?" He says, "I have to tear out all my carpet." And I
Yep,
said,
you
"Why?"
have to.
Because I can't get the resin to cure, and it's toxic until it's cured. So he had to tear out all of his carpet, all of the pad underneath,
Can't touch it.
and then go down with a UV light for like 3 days and shine it where the resin was on the concrete and had soaked in. And then he had to seal it and redo the whole floor, and no joke. So
Now, do you have a workshop, don't you?
I do. It's my much to my wife's chagrin, she doesn't get to park in the garage.
Ooh. See, we built this house in mind of me having my workshop, so we have
if I buy a new house, it'll have either a 3-car garage or a dedicated shop.
So my next step is expanding on the back side of the third car bay, because I've got a wall already. So she didn't want any of the man dust in the garage. So I got a wall with a door. So the next step will be to expand it to make it a long shop.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. So do you have a 3-car, Joey, or do you have
3-car?
Yeah, but do you have straight 3-car? Do you have the what do they call that? The extended 3-car. What do they call that? Where it's really a 2-car with an extra.
No,
long
ours was
space?
a full-blown 3-car garage, but we had the house built, so I had them put a wall in. So it's a 2-car garage with a third car area, well, a workshop.
With 3rd-car bay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, Renee, you're right. I need a workshop. That's my 20th anniversary present, is a workshop.
But yes, I would love to have a workshop away from the house. Personally.
Yeah.
But if
Yeah, me too.
getting into the rings, though, you don't need a lot of space. You need a grinder, a bandsaw, even a scroll saw is fine, but bandsaw is necessary. So sharpening, lathe area, and cutting area.
In that ring that you showed me over the weekend, did that have? Were you saying that's copper on the inside?
Yeah, copper on the inside, wood. That was cherry on the outside.
Is that? Where did you get the copper from? Are you one of those guys that are like rolling up on new construction sites and stealing the copper lines?
No. So it's you can go buy copper tubing it's 3/4 inch copper tubing from Home Depot. You just heat it up with a torch. Oh, I don't have it with me. Heat it up with a torch. You sink it in water, and that softens the metal, and then you can slam it down on a ring mandrel, a metal ring mandrel with a jeweler's hammer.
Yeah.
And it'll stretch it to the size you need.
Yeah, they make inserts, like for somebody that doesn't know how to turn, companies like Rockler and stuff like that have whole kits for that where you can get the shaped insert, but Joey's doing it the figured out way, and I love that. Like, he's doing it the right way.
You do know we're all screwed. Rich's Thanos glove just started blinking. He's about ready to snap, make it all disappear.
There's an Iron Man nano glove too. I gotta get that one too.
So what's next for you though? Like, what are you working on now? What's your?
I'm not working on anything now. Normally, whenever I deliver something to somebody, I'll post it on Instagram or Facebook, and I say, "What's next?" And I wait for somebody to give me a what's next. and that's kind of where I go with it, because it's a different challenge. Whether it's a different board or it's I'd love to do. If nobody gives me an idea, probably what I'll do is my first end grain cutting board with an inlay in it. So, it's coming up on football season. It's coming up on the holiday season. Everybody's got something on the barbecue, or cooking something that they got to carve. So I've always wanted to do them. I'll never get as crazy advanced as some of these that you'll see online, where people are putting full samurai masked inlays and stuff in these boards. But it's another thing, that just one of those things I've always wanted to do, and say I've done it.
Yeah.
So
you could do like a board for me that has the number 22 with the name Soto right above it.
So listen,
we acquired him. The Padres acquired him today.
Unrelated to all of this, real quick, something that I learned today, Joey, and you may have already known this. I didn't realize Tony Gwynn Jr. was the Padres announcer.
He's part-time. He's not the main guy, but he is.
The fact that Tony Gwynn Jr. is part of the Padres
he played for the Padres too.
Kind of a cool. But that was for 30 seconds.
Yeah, it really was. But yes, it's awesome hearing him, because every time you hear him, you think of Tony. So it is an amazing thing. And I guarantee that's why they have him there.
So, Rich, did you Porsche? The last one I saw you posted was the Big Bite BMX.
Mm-hmm.
Did you throw up your what's next?
I think I did, but I haven't heard anything yet. So I'm still waiting for. So far, Joey's the standout, because he gave me an idea.
Yeah, I mean,
I'll only do it if he puts it up behind him during the podcast. Just sounds like.
I guarantee if you got that would 100% happen.
Well, let's wait to make sure he is 22 still.
Yeah, you get 22 and find out he switched to number 7.
Put a 2 and a question mark next to it. He's
there you go.
something.
Yeah. But yeah,
the $22 billion that he got signed for.
I would not doubt that he's going to be he's going to be the highest paid Padre ever, without a doubt.
I mean, yeah, I think I'm pretty sure that contract that he was offered was the highest contract ever.
Yeah, I mean, so Hosmer, the guy that we dumped off on the Red Sox, was our highest. Well, no, I think there was somebody else between then and then, but in 2018, he was the highest paid, and we just dumped him off, and we're going to pay off his $39 million contract while he's on a different team.
That's hard for me to believe when you've got Machado and Tatis.
Well, yeah, I think Machado took over the highest paid.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's a nasty roster.
And we got something on Tatis last year, so I mean, Tatis, we want him to be a forever Padre. So
yeah. Anyhow,
baseball. Yeah, it was an exciting day for the Padres today.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. So yeah, I mean, sports could be a pretty cool thing.
Especially coming into football season, like you said.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
And I've got, I'm working on a Sounders logo, because, they beat Mexico a couple months ago. And I just found out that World Cup's going to be in Seattle next. Yep.
Oh, wow. Is it really?
So that'll be
an MLS team beat the Mexican national team.
Yeah. Apparently it was a big deal. I'm not a huge soccer.
Ridiculous big deal.
And then shortly, 2 weeks later, they announced that the World Cup was going to be in Seattle in 2024.
But just know this, though.
I did see that.
Just know that soccer players retire in the MLS. So they go from their big contracts to the U.S. now. This is what they do.
You say that, but the MLS, I just saw something the other day about the strongest soccer leagues.
Yeah.
And MLS, I think, has finally cracked into the top 10.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah, they're starting to gain some traction in the international scene. And I mean, hell, beating the Mexican national team
that's gigantic.
Yeah, that was huge.
That is groundbreaking for the U.S. But the only problem is the money still involved with it. Until they start getting fans, it's going to be an issue.
For MLS?
Yeah.
Well, the MLS is starting to get fans. Like in markets like in Seattle, like they have a pretty decent following.
Oh, there's
in some of
few
these
areas.
markets
DC, New York.
Yeah.
I mean, New York has what,
LA?
3 teams right now?
Even locally, Phoenix has got this team that
They're phenomenal
I think is,
too.
Yeah, the
Flame, or the, what are they called? The
Phoenix Rising.
Rising.
Yeah.
Phoenix Rising. Like people that love soccer like they pack that stadium every time, and it's not even
awesome
really a
too.
stadium.
It's outside.
Well, it's kind of like
nice,
this.
though.
It's like this little makeshift.
It's smaller than a high school stadium. Like it's a tiny, like my high school.
They haven't grown it at all since
was
then.
bigger than the soccer stadium here.
So it's the same as when I left. Okay.
Yeah, it's like this mobile stadium. Like they break it down after the season, and the stadium.
Oh, I was there
goes
numerous
away, and then
times.
But people that get it, like they're passionate about it.
Yeah, I love.
I mean,
soccer.
I enjoy World Cup soccer, and
Do you enjoy
honestly,
women's?
I was just getting ready to say I enjoy women's soccer more than I enjoy men's soccer.
No, you're not really watching the
100%.
soccer. Then you're watching the bodies.
No, 100% not. Like, are you kidding me? Women's
No,
soccer.
I'm not kidding you at all.
It's the one sport in the U.S. that, from a soccer standpoint, that you can like legit cheer about. Like,
Oh, for sure, I agree with you on that.
because you can't watch. I mean, like to your point, the MLS is typically guys that are at the end of their career, whereas we're like actually pretty dominant on the female. Like I get into female World Cup soccer. I enjoy the hell out of the women's national team during World Cup. I don't pay attention to it much outside of that.
I get that, but have you watched, like, let's say a Premier League game?
No. I don't
Okay,
enjoy soccer that much.
well, I'm just telling you that, like, if you watch the Premier League game and watch a women's game, it's a different game. I'm not being.
I get that.
I'm not being. But if you're truly, well, that's where I was going with. If you're really watching it for the game, it's a whole different game. That's all. But it is amazing.
Maybe to somebody that is either played or enjoys soccer at a different level, cool, I get that.
Probably right.
But
You're
for me,
probably
like,
right.
listen, I don't have any misconceptions at all that if I were to go out with any women's player soccer, like that would be a very short-lived game with me being involved in that.
No,
like,
I
they're
get it.
kicking my ass. I understand that. So I just enjoy the competitiveness. Like some of those, these they're competitive games. Now, look, in all fairness, I think I watched a women's national team game where we won like 12-1 a couple years ago. And like,
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
that was a little overkill. Like, okay, this really wasn't a fair match. Like, it was just like scoring, which I do appreciate the scoring in soccer. But like when they get into some of one of my favorite moments is what's her name after she scored the goal and she runs and slides and takes off her shirt and we won the World Cup in the shootout. Like that was a great moment.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah, it gives you the bumps, chill bumps.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
I get
I
it.
agree.
And when we're
It's
talking
like watching
about,
college football versus NFL games. I do too. I prefer college more.
I'm not even an
Because they're
NFL fan
playing
anymore.
You're not an NFL fan anymore,
No.
but you're a MLB fan.
Oh yeah, but I love college football. Like I've already got tickets for Alabama in October.
So disappointing.
Oh, whatever. You can't compare. If you've ever been to one of the major SEC college football games, you can't compare it to other colleges. Even I've been to Boise State games, which they're my favorite team, the Broncos. I've been to a few of those games, and it doesn't compare to going to Alabama for a game.
I hear you. If I had a competitive college football team to root for, maybe I would have a different feeling.
U of A,
But-
come on.
U of A just is so bad at football. College basketball,
Oh, that's a different
whole
story.
different story.
Yeah.
I'll get into college basketball. College football is just
Yeah. But we have family that works. My wife's got family that's high up at Alabama. So we get tickets here and there. And
fair.
it's amazing to go.
Yeah, that level of college football is 100%. It's an experience from the time that you get within a mile or two of the
Yeah.
stadium.
Oh, yeah,
I went
exactly,
to Kinnick
too.
Stadium for the Hawkeyes there in Iowa, and it just blew my mind. You know, I was there probably 4 hours early, and I had to park like 7 miles away
Same thing, though.
and
Yep.
walk in.
But
Well, yeah,
Hansy, Hansy, just
Cedar-
real quick, the big Utah versus BYU is a big deal, though. People don't get that because I'm Mountain West, so I get it.
yeah, but like you were talking about with Iowa, like that town.
It's
Every
ridiculous.
time I see any, we obviously know so many people that live there. Like they go crazy.
Oh yeah,
Crazy.
it's huge. It's a religion
for-
there. It's nuts.
Yeah.
yeah,
And
it's-
they actually have one of the coolest. I will say this about them. I'm not a fan of them by any stretch of the imagination. That's not my co-signing fandom of them, but they have arguably the coolest college football tradition going.
what is it?
Where at the start of the fourth quarter, so there's this big children's hospital that sits right behind the stadium. And at the end or at the start of the fourth quarter, like everybody in the stadium, and I'm probably going to get this wrong. So excuse me by getting this wrong what they do. But the players and all of the fans, because all the kids watch the game from the children's hospital, and they
Aw,
all turn around and wave to the kids
that's
in
really
the
cool.
children's hospital that's right behind the stadium. It's one of the neatest traditions, and it's actually just a recent thing that they started too. I don't think that's been like a long-term tradition. It's just something that they recently started.
We
So-
easily go off on tangents here, Rich.
Yeah.
That's what conversation is about.
It is. You're
Just
right.
kind of goes. Just kind of goes.
So we are at our hour. If you guys are here and you have not followed us, please give us a follow. If you haven't subscribed, please give us a subscription. You can use your Prime for free, or you can give us a couple bucks like you're, out getting a Starbucks. Make sure, though, that when you get that notification, you stop by and visit us. Thank you, Rich.
Thank
for
you guys. It was a
coming
lot of
by.
fun.
And definitely excited to
Rich,
see more stuff
Are we
from
your
you.
first? Are we your first podcast?
You are my first podcast. I was afraid that
Yeah.
I wasn't going to be cool because I don't have a bunch of LEDs and stuff in the background. So that's why I had to have
Actually,
the Thanos glove going.
You've got
Yeah, you
cool
actually
stuff behind you, though.
you got a pretty legit background setup. That's not bad at all.
Well, it's all wood and wood. I didn't make it, but somebody did. I
And
couldn't make
you've got really cool stuff in the overlay. So
it. Yeah,
that's all
yeah,
you.
did a good job on that.
I do want to know about the Converse,
The Converse.
the red
What was that?
Converse.
The red. I was just wondering about that. I was looking at the what's the red Converse?
Is that a picture? It was on your timeline in your photos.
Oh, we red Converse. So my family does that. Oh, those are my family does that with. All four of us have Converse. So when we go on a trip or whatever, it's kind of a thing that we'll do. So that was up at the North Pole Experience,
Oh,
or
Oh,
the Polar
cool.
Express. I'm sorry. So we all
Oh,
went up
you
there.
did the Polar Express. How cool.
So that was fun. That's just a thing that we do as a family to kind of all be together, and then everybody else goes and does their own thing. But
Right. It gets worse as they get older.
yeah, I've got one's 5 and one's 13, so they go.
So you
Straight
get the
this way.
idea, yeah. So thanks, Hansy, for stopping by the way. appreciate you, and I'm glad you enjoyed
Good
it.
turnout tonight.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
It's good. This was a lot of fun. You guys
Well,
have a
you're
great job.
welcome back anytime.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we didn't. We joked about this before we went live on this, but we didn't even get into some of our Joey. We've talked about this before, getting into the topics about rating some of the. You know what we need to do is after Black Panther, let's revisit. I'll come back, bring Rich on because he can definitely. Me and Rich get into these conversations on a regular basis, anyways, about what we think about different movies that
Yeah, here's an example.
Marvel.
Love and Thunder, go. Good or bad? Where do you put it?
So wait, do you have I talked to you about my comic book scale? I have a scale of comic book movies.
Probably. I think you have.
So top greatest comic book movie all time, Endgame.
Yeah.
Okay.
Close. Yeah.
Worst comic book movie all time, Aquaman. Bottom of my list. Aquaman's trash.
Yeah.
I don't agree with him,
I think it's like the second Hulk movie for me is probably the worst of all time for me.
Wait, with Ed Norton?
Yeah. I just didn't
You know that's canon in this.
Oh, I know. MCU. I still didn't like it. I still don't have to like it.
Oh, fair.
Or if I actually think of it as a Marvel movie rather than a Sam Raimi movie, hands down the worst movie to come out in the MCU was Multiverse of Madness. Unless you think of it as a Sam Raimi movie, then it's great. You can watch it all day long.
Hey, who's seen the previews for She-Hulk?
I think that's going to be super fun.
I think it's going to be amazing. I do too. I'm excited.
Okay, hey, all right. We haven't talked about this. Miss Marvel. What was your thought on that?
I loved it. I think it was especially after the giant wet blanket of whatever that Moon Knight. I think his superpower is getting his ass kicked. That's all he does. He just.
I didn't mind Moon Knight at all.
I didn't mind Moon Knight. But you liked Wanda too, didn't you?
Good, and then it was.
Oh, you liked WandaVision?
I loved it.
I didn't. Like it.
But this is where we could definitely have entertaining conversation. Like we're gonna bring Rich back on again. Like we're gonna dedicate. We'll do a different topic.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna bring Rich back purely to talk some nerd stuff, and get into this because Rich and I disagree clearly on a lot of things on stuff. we're not in the same. We're not in the same ballpark.
Mike and I tend to be very similar in what we like.
I still haven't watched the Batman yet. I've watched the first 10 minutes.
Really?
Yeah.
It's a must see. You probably haven't seen Top Gun Maverick either, right?
I have. It was phenomenal.
Okay.
I loved it.
Okay.
Good.
But I just couldn't. I've watched like the first 10 minutes of. You know what I'm back into? I know we're not supposed to, but you know what I'm back into is Westworld. Nobody's talking about it.
I just started it. I just started it again.
Season 4? Or are you?
No,
in
I'm on
one?
season 1, episode 1.
Yeah. The
whatever.
Second
Magic.
and third season gets a little squishy, but the fourth season I think is back on point.
Oh, good to know. I just finished, if you haven't watched it, the full Yellowstone series and 1883.
Rich, did you get into any of those?
I haven't watched it yet.
Oh, you need to stop everything you're watching and watch that.
So here's how I rate stuff. Is if my mom likes it, who lives with us and is 80 years old and goes between Yellowstone and Fox News, and the Hallmark Channel, I immediately assume that it's not good.
So let me ask you a question. I'll know whether or not you'll like this. Did you watch Sons of Anarchy?
I did not.
Okay. Did you watch
Sopranos?
Did you watch Sopranos?
A little bit of Sopranos.
Didn't like Sopranos?
I just it was at the time I just didn't. I think it was on too late and I fell asleep early.
Okay.
You probably won't get into Yellowstone then. If you didn't get caught up into the hype of Sons of Anarchy,
that style,
all of that.
Most of the stuff that's real, that could actually happen type stuff, I don't watch. Like I look at my stuff as stuff to escape. So sci-fi,
it's an escape. It's an escape still.
I can agree with you. Like I won't get into stuff like Law and Order, like cop shows and the majority. The last legal show that I got into, I think, was Boston Legal. I really enjoyed the hell out of Boston Legal back in the day. But I'm with you. Like, most of my stuff is escape reality type of stuff. Like, I'm not, but I do enjoy that. All right, yeah, Rich, we're definitely going to invite you back if you're down. We're going to invite you back to talk Marvel Universe, Star Wars Universe. Maybe what we'll do is we'll wait to the launch of Andor, and we'll bring you back then to talk some
Renee.
initial reactions on Andor.
Yeah,
Renee says it's too over the top to be real.
Andor?
Well,
no,
she's talking Yellowstone.
Oh yeah, well, I'm sure we're all going to be very happy with Andor. So
yeah, it's already getting some positive, and that's hard to do in the Star Wars universe. Get people talk positive about them in advance of something.
It's so toxic.
Yeah, the worst fan base in the world. Love me some Star Wars. Hate me some Star Wars fans. All right, guys.
Yep.
All right.
Well, we're going to wrap
you guys.
it up.
I appreciate it. That was fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Night, everybody.
Hey, we're not going to be on Thursday. We'll be on Sunday this week.
Yep. Late.
So,
all right, I'll tune in.